Or are you getting that photo?
Okay, everyone. As everyone is beginning to get their food, I ask all of you to take your seats. We are going to begin our Lenten lecture for tonight. Tonight's lecture first is hosted by our Sunday school program. I would like everyone to give a round of applause to our Sunday school staff and families for putting on this beautiful meal. Thank you, everyone, for your love and dedication. So tonight, all of us are very blessed. So the last couple of weeks, we've heard two wonderful Lenten lectures. 2 weeks ago, the first one, we had Deacon Theodore Sekelaridis, who spoke so beautifully on the understanding of medicine and science and the true interaction with our Lord and the Creator. Last week, we had a really inspiring Lenten lecture from Father Jim Gordon. Father Jim spoke to us really beautifully on the essence of prayer, silence, and calmness. And tonight, we're going to have another unique topic as well, too, from Mr. Nick Kasemeotes. So, Mr. Nick Kasemeotes, I'm going to read a little bit of his bio. I've known Nick not only these last few years, but for some time. Nick is a very dear friend of my extended family. He is very close with my father-in-law, Father Ted Pateris, so if you know that, that might sound like trouble. We'll use that for another time of topic. But tonight we're going to hear from Nick. I'm going to give a little bit of his bio, and then from there we'll ask him to come up, and he will enlighten us with some beautiful words of encouragement and wisdom through our Christian life and ethos. So first, Mr. Kasemeotes was born in Houston, Texas, and he grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Do we have any other Wisconsin-raised people here? I thought we had a couple, but I guess not. Most of us are in this area or have come close to this area. He received his bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, so he is a Badger. Is anyone from UW? No? Wow, I thought I had a couple Badgers. Okay, I guess you're on your own, Nick. His master's degree comes from Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, and Nick also served in the metropolis of Chicago since 1981. For 25 years, he served as a hospital chaplain to the Orthodox patients at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He also served as a prison chaplain to Orthodox inmates at 2 federal and 1 state prisons. He was part of the effort in founding the Philoxenia houses in Rochester, Minnesota. Has anyone visited those? No one's been up to Mayo here? I know many people who have gone up to Mayo Clinic and have stayed in the Philoxenia houses or have visited them. They're very near the Church of Holy Anagati in Rochester, Minnesota. And it's incredible because what they do is they literally give free housing to those in need, especially when they're visiting Mayo Clinic. Now, we all realize the importance with Mayo Clinic is usually when someone goes up there, it's for either some very serious reason or to find other resources and outlets for any cure or ailment that they are dealing with. From there, he also offered the major capital campaign to build the Philoxenia houses and the new Orthodox church that's at Holy Anagati in Rochester, Minnesota. In 2009, he began a new calling as a professional fundraiser. He has been active in several capital, stewardship, and tithing campaigns. He served the metropolis recently by raising funds for the St. Yaakob's Retreat Center, which is in Kansasville, Wisconsin. Since 2012, he has served as a major gift officer for International Orthodox Christian Charities, IOCC. And he and his beloved wife, Beth, live in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, with their dog, Bucky. So we thank Nick for joining us tonight. We look forward to hearing his words of guidance and enlightenment, especially on the topics of stewardship. And I think he's going to give us a little bit more background as well, too, on IOCC and what our actions could be in that manner as well, too. Nick, thank you, my friends. God bless you.
we can't forget the skilaki, right? The most important person in the family, right? This is a special day. We commemorated Christodolos of Patmos, and all my grandparents are from the island. Είμαστε νησιώτες από την Patmos. And έχω θείο εκεί που είναι μοναχός. I have an uncle there who's still a monk, retired. So it's a special day for the Patmians. And if you know about the Patmians, probably not. They moved to Mobile, Alabama, and Houston, Texas, where I was born. So, 3 things before I start. And please don't get a big head, okay? The chanting here was remarkable. You know, all the years, this is top. This was top. And you know, it moved. Ella, you know, it moved. I've been at some churches, the Kyrie eleison lasts for half an hour. And I'm going, you know? So the chanting was wonderful, the service moved. Father Chris has become a good friend. I was classmates with his father-in-law, and I could tell stories to go on forever, but I won't. The last thing, promise not to get a big head. Last year, this parish, St. Nectarios, the parish and the Philokavos gave over $20,000 to help those in need in the Ukraine and Greece. You're number 1 in the Chicago area. No other parish, Greek or otherwise. So thank you. Thank you a million times for that. IOCC, for those of you who don't know, is International Orthodox Christian Charities. It was founded 31 years ago in 1992. It is under the Assembly of Bishops, and it is pan-Orthodox. In the 31 years that we have been in existence, we've distributed $771 million in aid to 60 countries. We're efficient. When you give to a charity, 92% goes to programs, only 8% to fundraising and administrative costs. So that doesn't say a lot about my salary. And they call me a gift officer. Really, what I am is a professional beggar, right? I'm a professional beggar, but I don't beg for myself. I beg for people in need all over the world. Last year, 2022, we served 1.5 million people all over the world. And I'm just going to give you a quick jet trip through the world and the work we're doing. In Ethiopia, we're dealing with podoconiosis, is an inflammation of the feet and legs. They had a severe drought. At the same time, they had locusts. At the same time, they have war. And at the same time, COVID. So you don't read much about Ethiopia in the media, but it's a place we've been working now for many, many years. In the Republic of Georgia, we have bought greenhouses for people who are out of work, teaching them how to grow fruits and vegetables so they can make a living. And this is what we do. It's on a spectrum. It's from immediate relief, disaster relief, and I'll talk about that, Ukraine and what happened there and the earthquake, to teaching people how to fend for themselves, to make a living on their own, either through education or job. In Greece, there's 3 programs we have: the grocery cards ever since the economic collapse, ag co-ops up in northern Greece, refugee aid, and now with the wildfires, and I'll talk about a little bit about what happened last year in Evia, northern Evia, where there was great devastation with the fires. The Republic of Jordan, the country of Jordan, we deal with children and adults with disabilities, hearing aids, glasses. If they have developmental illnesses, autism, and things like this, we help them, walkers and wheelchairs. Jerusalem, West Bank, Jordan, Gaza Strip, vocational training. We take young people out of college and we put them in internships so they can get training and go and get a good job. Lebanon, it's a country under great instability. We're still helping. Lebanon is a country of 4.5 million people. 1.5 people are refugees, if you can imagine, 1 out of 3 people. So we're helping there. Many of you read about the explosion in Beirut. It devastated St. George Hospital, which is actually an Orthodox Christian-run hospital, and we've helped rebuild it. In Syria, we are dealing with children. We call them dream centers. These are children who have seen, and I'm not going to get into R-rated things, but what they've seen, horrible things to their parents, to their grandparents, to their classmates, and they shut down. They shut down. They don't want to engage anybody or talk to anybody, and we help through art and music and sports to open them up. In the United States, we've been very active with the hurricanes, the fires, the home builds, the shootings. Western Balkans, in Bosnia, we're handing out microloans. These are an average of maybe $150,000 to $6,000 loans to businesses so they can progress. What's been on everybody's mind the last year plus is what happened in Ukraine. And IOCC, just like everybody else, kind of saw it coming, and we were on the ground the first week. We set a goal of $1 million to raise. We exceeded that. We set another goal at $3 million, and now we're at $5 million. So your generosity has been phenomenal. So what happened in Ukraine and still going on? 40 million people roughly in Ukraine. 5 million are internally displaced. In other words, they've left their homes and they're somewhere else in Ukraine to avoid the fighting. 8 million have left the country. We have provided medical supplies, electronic equipment, refrigerator, heater, and then the first time in our whole life we've had to deal with something extremely evil. And that is, if you remember, in Ukraine, when the crisis started, the men had to stay. So it was women and children who left. And they came across the border in Poland and Romania. And believe it or not, the human traffickers were lined up there. Something we've never seen before. So we had to train and vet our staff to be on the lookout for these bad actors and to keep people safe. Now, I will say, the secret sauce of IOCC is wherever we work through the church. So God forbid anything happen here, we call Father Chris. Father Chris asks for volunteers to do it. The same thing happened in Romania. Now, don't forget, this was during Lent and Holy Week last year that this invasion occurred. So, what was happening? So, you know, the priests always complain they're overworked during Holy Week. Well, these Romanian priests, I know you don't complain. These Romanian priests were doing all their services. They were jumping in their cars with their parishioners, Romanian Orthodox, going to the border and sitting there for hours, giving food and clothes and whatever the people needed. Many of them brought back the refugees, had them in their own home. One of the priests gave up his beautiful parish home, and he had refugee families living there, and he rented his own apartment. Wow. So this is kind of the real heroes of this thing. The earthquake in Turkey and Syria, right? The last estimate was 47,000 people had died. We're there offering food and shelter, and to make it real, one of our wonderful donors from Seattle, she's Greek Orthodox, she immigrated from Turkey because there's still some Greeks left there. And in their little village, she emailed me and she said, you know, Nick, they're pulling out my family out of the rubble. So this makes this all real. I have materials on that back table. You can look us up, iocc.org, online giving. I have envelopes back there, so on and so forth. So any questions before I start about everybody's favorite subject, money? Any questions about the work IOCC is doing? Okay. Well,
I got a question.
Yes.
How do you determine how do you determine who needs the most help and when?
We have a certain capacity, staffing that we have to worry about. Where's the funding going to come from? We also go by the UN identifies the most vulnerable in certain areas, so we try to target those areas. So it's an evaluation process. We can't do everything, but where it all works out, we can be very efficient, and that's mainly in Orthodox countries. Yes?
Do you have people globally that you communicate with in order to go to these areas that are afflicted?
We have, our headquarters are in Baltimore. There's about 30 staff there. And then around the world, we have about 250 staff in all these countries. So that staff, those staff members pretty much oversee the programs wherever it is, Greece, Ukraine, Syria, whatever. Yes?
How do you send the money? Where do you send it? Does it just kind of go to a specific fund? Because the more liberal you are, the worse it could be. People.
We monitor every dollar. We don't give money away. And that's the short answer.
Right.
We manage every dollar. We account for every dollar. Our finances are on the website. Our audits are on the website. One of the things we really feel strongly about is accountability, transparency. I'll be candid. Priests, bishops, whatever, give us the money, we'll take care of it, and we just don't do that. We have to monitor everything. And we have to because we qualify for some U.S. aid. U.S. aid has, the government has voted X dollars for Ukraine relief, right? We can qualify for those grants. So historically, we have been able to leverage every dollar given 7 times through matching these grants. So that $20,000 you gave last year really turned into $140,000 worth of relief. Okay, so Greece. The last 10 years, we've expended $55 million in Greece. We've helped 150 small businesses and associations to the tune of 1.9 million people. $40 million worth of essential medical supplies to the country's public hospitals. The Pancretans, the AHEPA, a lot of Greek organizations have helped us ship medical containers there. Over $5 million has gone to food to underprivileged family. And we responded last year about the fires in northern Evia. 1,800 direct beneficiaries across northern Evia got our help. 750 tons of animal feed, because right, they didn't have anything to feed their animals. 300 families. If you know northern Evia, the commodity they live on is resin. The trees burnt down, so we provided kind of a halfway measure until these trees could come back. We helped 15 devastated businesses. We rebuilt 60 devastated homes, and we bought an ambulance. Any questions about Greece? And I'll just read a little story. 2015, Yanni owned a bicycle repair shop in a small town in northern Evia. In the summer, he offered bicycle rentals and repairs. The rest of the year, he organized bike tours through northern Greece. He dreamed of expanding his business and was well on his way to doing this when the fires came and destroyed his shop. He rebuilt his workshop as quickly as he could. He needed new equipment more than ever, and we gave him the grant to buy that. Now his business is booming. He's back on his feet, so on and so forth. So thank you for those efforts. Any other questions about IOCC? Okay, now I'm going to ask for your input here. When you hear the word stewardship, what do you think? What do you think? What? Staying in church. Okay. Anybody else? Giving. Okay. Anybody else? Helping. Helping. Okay. Now, how many here consider themselves stewards, either of this parish or another parish? Okay. How many people consider themselves good stewards? I'm playing a game with you guys, okay? I'm playing a game with you guys. What did you say?
Very subjective.
Okay. Okay. So let me throw something out. Is a millionaire who gives $100 to their church a good steward?
No.
Depends.
What she said. So it is a widow who makes $30,000 a year, who gives $30,000 a year on Social Security, who gives $5,000. Is she a good steward?
Yes.
Depends.
You're cheating. Okay, so this is what I want to get at. Okay, there has to be a measure. Okay, and I'm speaking out of love. All right, this is a hard subject to talk about, but everything I say is out of love. And some things are hard. So we can't just leave it up to our own selves to say, I'm a good steward, right? Because I have met millionaires who give $100 to their church and they say, Nick, I'm a great steward of the church. Okay? And then I've met widows on $30,000 who give $5,000 away and they say, I don't give enough. So, you know, that whole Orthodox principle that we can't just deceive ourselves, right? Because this is very tempting. I'm a good person, right? I only steal a couple times a week. I verbally abuse my wife. Okay, I'm a good husband. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? This is tough, but think about it. Think about it. So, Jesus never did any fundraising, but he talked about money second most to talking about the kingdom of heaven, if you look it up in the scriptures. So, where I think we make mistakes is that first answer. When we think of stewardship, we think of giving to the church. Actually, what we should do is be thinking about our souls. Am I a good steward? Okay, how much does God love me? How much do I love? And the answer that I realized later in my life, when I was preparing to be married, my wife asked me, do you tithe? I go, what is that? What is that? What is tithing? You know, and she said, you know, pateros mu, edos deka ekato, you know, and o papulis to idio. She said, if you want to marry me and stay married, you're going to learn to give 10% of your income away, either to the church or to other charitable causes. So, I like my wife, she's beautiful, I don't want a divorce, so, at least not right today, but some days, you know how it is. So, so this is what I do every year. I look at my income, and I look at my charitable deduction, and I say, is that 10%? Now, something happened when I started doing that, and I walked into the church. I go to Milwaukee Annunciation, the Frank Lloyd Wright thing up there. Something happened that I felt never before, that I was fully part of the church. Because before, I was kind of saying, just like self-deception, oh, I'm a good steward. But now I walked in, I say, now I am fully committed to the Lord. So this is the challenge of each of us. And where does the tithe come from? You know, sometimes we think this is a Protestant thing. It's really not. It's Orthodox. So the tithe is giving 10% away. Why do we do it? The simple answer is because God wants us to do it. And what God wants for us is the best for us. That's the bottom line. When we do it, we experience a joy. Where it started in the Old Testament, Abraham and Melchizedek, who we mention oftentimes during the liturgical services. So Abraham went into battle. He won. This mysterious priest shows up, and he gives him 10% of what he was victorious over. And what does the priest Melchizedek do? Anybody know? gives him bread and wine. Okay, so from thousands of years ago, nothing has changed, right? We give the 10%, the priest comes out, just like tonight, and gives us the bread and wine, now the body and blood of Christ. So again, this is the first tithe. The Levitical law then put it into law. Behold, I give the children of Levi all the tithes in Israel as an inheritance in return for their liturgical service. So basically the tithe in the Old Testament, people giving 10%, provided for the care of the temple and the Levitical priests and all that. So now here's where it gets a little testy. This is in Malachi in the Old Testament. For some reason, the people of Israel stopped tithing. This is scary now, okay? Will a man insult God? This is Malachi. Yet you have insulted me. This is God speaking. But you say, in what way have we insulted you, Lord? And he says, you keep back tithes and offering. You are robbing from me. Right? When we don't tithe, there it is. We're robbing God. Now, people say, okay, the tithe went out in the Old Testament, right? Well, you look at the New Testament, and this is the Lord, Matthew 23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of milk and anise and cumin, but have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. So he's prioritizing, of course. You know, the word for almsgiving is eleemosini, which really we should translate almsgiving as an antiquated term. Eleemosini is really mercy giving. Mercy giving. Whether it's forgiveness, whether it's kindness, whatever. So this is what the Lord said. These you have ought to have done without leaving the other undone. So he had a perfect opportunity to say, we're done with the tithe. But what does he do? He says, do the most important things, mercy and justice, but keep the other things. And of course later, he says, those who teach people to violate the least of the law will be least in the kingdom. Those who teach the greater things will be great in the kingdom. So here now we have this level, right? So if we teach people to tithe and do it, we will. Okay, so do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Now, here's even a more impressive one. Okay, so here's the Old Testament tradition of tithing. Here's the Lord insisting that we keep the tithe in the church. Now here's St. John Chrysostom in the 4th century. Okay, this is a quote from him. If there was a danger in the Old Testament in omitting tithes, think how great it must be now. Okay, so what's the difference? In the Old Testament, they tithe out of obedience to the law, out of the fear of God. Now, St. John Chrysostom, we tithe out of love. Okay, we do the right thing because we love the Lord. So, and I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. Billy, where'd you go? I wanna give you something. Okay, hang on. Here, count that. Count that. Tell us what's in there.
Don't get too excited.
$10.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Show everybody the $10. All right. Can I have one back? All right. Is that a pretty good deal? Is that a pretty good deal? This is our problem, right? It's a perfect example. So I'm going to finish with that. All right? It's a good deal. And that's exactly what tithing is. That's exactly what it is. So thank you for listening, for your patience. Any questions about our giving and our tithing? Look, these are tough things. Believe me, Once you start talking about money, it presses a button. But in the end, I have to worry about my soul and what God has blessed me. And that's, forget about the church, forget about his salary, forget about, everything else. That's not why I do it. I do it for my soul. And eventually we have to reach this point, and we cannot deceive ourselves, because that's a threat.
Have you seen an example of tithing in the Orthodox Church?
Yes. Yes.
Or like the community?
I was in a parish in Costa Mesa, California, 2 weeks ago. They've been teaching the tithe for years and years and years. I asked them, and again, I'm kind of violating what I just said. But it shows what the byproduct of our tithing is. They're a parish of 100 families. They raise $600,000 in stewardship. So figure it out. $6,000 a family. And they give 10% of it away every month. So, we have to start. There's a book written where it kind of gets to it. A lot of the priests, I visit so many parishes, a lot of the priests just are afraid to talk about money. They're just afraid because, Papa said more money, bigger salary, whatever. I don't want to hear about it. But if we focus it on our souls, when he speaks about money, he's speaking because he loves us, right? Just when we don't, if we don't forgive, he calls us to task, right? When we kick our dog, he calls us to task, when we steal. So I understand what I'm saying. Maybe everybody can't tithe right away, but start on the journey. If you're giving 2%, next year give 3%. Get there, and you're going to feel a joy. So this is now, I keep saying I'm going to finish. God promises in Malachi, he says, test me. Okay? Now we remember the New Testament says, do not test the Lord your God, right? That's what he says to the devil. But in this one case, we can test it. He says, test me. Give the tithe. And he says, if you do, I will open for you the floodgates of heaven and pour out for you a blessing until it is overflowing. So this, in the end, as I said, what God wants is the best for us. And he will bless us when we begin to do this.
Thank you, Nick.
Yes.
I just been thinking as you were talking, a good steward is also somebody that handles the money that they receive correctly in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we give and we see them wasting money on things, then we don't feel good about giving.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing that St. Nectarios gave 20,000, whatever extra, or whatever, helps the person like me, say, it's going to a good cause. So it helps me with my giving to see that the money is taken care of.
Yes.
I also think
good
that
steward, good stewardship also belongs to the church and the church organizations. We have to be appreciative and treat what you give responsibly.
Right.
And hopefully, that happens.
Exactly.
That happens. Yes.
I've got a question.
You were going to finish.
No,
I have a question to ask you. What happens when in a case you're doing great, everything is happening good, church is going good, then all of a sudden you start hitting hard times where we sought ourselves and we're at this church.
Right.
In the beginning, now we're back to the point where we're supposed to be, and actually more. Thank God, Father Chris. But I mean, when we got to the times when you had to go, as the old saying goes, day by day, to pay your bills and that. And the people out there don't even have it. Let's say you lose 30% of the people. What do?
You do the best. I mean, you do the best, right?
I know that you're saying you're doing the best, but is there a way to solve this problem?
Well,
you
if
gotta
we
talk to the man upstairs.
right.
That's the problem, because it does happen.
Right. Okay, one example. I was in a parish in Indianapolis, Holy Trinity Cathedral, Father Bill Barbs. If any of you know, he's retired now. They had, you're gonna love this story, man. So they had a $800,000 mortgage left on their building. I called them and I said, Father Bill, can I come visit the parish and talk about IOCC? He says, you know, Nick, we have this big mortgage. We want to pay it off, but you know what? Come and ask for money. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, he's an ex-Navy chaplain, so, you know, the general. So I come. He lets me speak in a church about the work IOCC is doing. And a man walks in 2 days after I've left with a $50,000 check. And he asked Father Bill, I really like with this IOCC what I heard. Should I give it to them or should I give it to the mortgage? Oh, okay. So, yeah, what would right? What would you do, right? What would most priests do? I hate to say. But Father Bill goes, give it to IOCC. So he does. A few weeks later, he won't tell me if it's the same man or a different man, walks in and pays off the entire mortgage. Wow. And I mean, I'm going, Father Bill, this was a test for you. And God rewarded you. So now you have $1.8 million mortgage. You're celebrating an anniversary. So you know how to get it paid. Somebody write me a $50,000 check.
You heard it. Right there.
So, you know, and one other. I'm in Seattle. I'm meeting with a donor, Greek family, and they bring up the tithe. They said, Nick, we're tithing, and I said, I always ask people who tithe, why did you tithe? Why did you start tithing? And you know what he told me? He goes, my boss is an atheist. He doesn't go to church. He doesn't believe in God, but he believes in giving 10% away.
Wow.
And he goes, here, I'm an Orthodox Christian with all the fullness of truth, with the beauty, and he is doing that, and I'm not. I mean, you know, all kinds of stories. Lots of stories. So, I've done.
True, thank you. Is there anyone else questions? Anyone else want to bring up anything? You know, I want to let's give a round of applause to Nick first for being here tonight. You know, Nick, as we said, and for himself, what he was speaking about, not only for IOCC, but obviously the attitude of stewardship and giving. It's something remarkable, but it's honest. Many of us really, we struggle about it. I know clergy as well. You'll hear us, we're very sensitive to the subject. But I think what we see, and when we see when people's hearts, and obviously when they relate it with our Lord, that they give. And I think, you know, when I was teasing you about the depends part, the one thing that I always see that adds to someone's stewardship is something that Helen brought up, is that obviously the church is being good stewards, and then the ministries as well too. But we also put in the effect where someone's time and talents naturally goes into a long degree too. So when we have people who are leading ministries, who are volunteering, who are here as often as possible because they care and want to, it adds to that beauty and blessings that we receive. So I just, you know, tonight we're just so blessed that Nick was able to give us this guidance and to understand about the topic of tithing, because it is a foreign subject to us as Greek Orthodox Christians, and it's just something for us to think about as we continue in the future. But it's some place to start. But I think the key point of tonight was knowledge. Just understand that it exists. Where did it come from? And how do we apply it to our lives? And I know Nick and our Archdiocese and the outreach and stewardship committees have a lot of resources. But it is our goal as we continue to offer these efforts to encourage our people as they do, and we are here at St. Nectarios. We're very blessed. Our people do give, and it was a testimony last year because what I think myself now being, and just to conclude on your topic, is what I've seen now from my last 4 years is I remember our first year in 2019, it was a really challenge-filled year. And the one topic that I think resonates with our community is that for our Greek Fest, where our Greek Fest solely was done, I know people put it as something that we do for the community, but it really is to bring in funds to support the church. We as a committee made a strong challenge that said we were going to give $10,000 from the proceeds at a point in our year when we were in a really tough financial situation. So we took a leap of faith, so to say, and what did we do? We ended up giving the $10,000, I think it was to the food pantry in 2019 here in Palatine, and the outpouring of support, the outpouring of encouragement, and then people then continuously give kind of went from there. So I think a lot of these attitudes to what you have been doing, Nick, and for us as Orthodox Christians is realistically that understanding that's a leap of faith. And it's putting trust in our God. So I commend you, Nick. Thank you for everything that you do. God bless you, my friend, and your family. And thank you for being with us. I want another round of applause for Nick. And I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight. God bless all of you. We thank you for joining us for these Lenten lectures, and then we'll have another one next week as well, too. Next week's Lenten lecture is Dr. Rhonda Anderson. Dr. Rhonda is an incredible Orthodox psychologist who it'll be a great opportunity for us to hear from her as she has an Orthodox Christian background, as well as how she applies it to her profession as a psychologist, not only with youth, but with adults and anyone dealing with any grief or anything that they need for their psychological and spiritual improvement. So that'll be next Wednesday, following the pre-sanctified liturgy, and we hope all of you will be able to join us then. Thanks.